The CS2 market has gone absolutely insane over the past year, but especially inside of the past couple of months. We've seen price explosions all across the board, and especially when we're talking about items relating to our investments, which is why today I'm going to be telling you why I sold over the past couple of days and what specific items I have sold. Obviously, I have not sold everything. We've got a lot of assets inside of our inventory, and some of them have been going absolutely crazy and would be insane to sell them. Now, looking at everything we're seeing all across the board, the majority of items have really been in a great position, consistently moving upwards, especially over a longer period of time. However, not everything is created equal, especially when we're breaking down into investments. Something like the case market, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into in a minute, is obviously going absolutely insane. Compare that to some of the older major items, older operation items. Not everything is exactly consistent, which is why I think it's really important to cut some of your losses inside of this area, maybe cash out with a little bit of profit like you'll see I have done in some of these areas. Overall, it's really important to make sure you're consistently judging your investments and making sure these still are the most opportune areas to be in, especially right now when the market is going absolutely insane. Skinland is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free $10 on your first trade. It's where I personally sell my skins because you're going to be getting the highest rate out there. They're offering a maximum amount of money in a minimum amount of time, and it's going to be nearly instant with tons of different payout options. Combine that with their massive marketplace where you're going to be able to buy anything in the entire game you're looking for with a ton of different deposit options here as well. Right now, this is the #1 place to go ahead and sell or buy skins in my personal opinion, so go ahead, use code MasterShiny and check them out today. Now, breaking down the first thing I went ahead and sold, that's going to be everything from the Rio Major. Now, the Rio Major was a little bit of an interesting one. Specifically, it was the only non-borderless we had seen in the span of a couple of years, and therefore I invested a little bit into it. Nothing absolutely crazy, but I thought it was going to be something that potentially could have an opportunity down the line. And if we want to look at it right now, we can see exactly what has happened. Honestly, the majority of these items really have been quite stagnant, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not really in a position where I want stagnant investments inside of my inventory right now. A lot of my capital is into cases. I want to have some capital on canned right now, and I don't want to really sell off cases, so I went ahead, sold off some Rio. I also went ahead, sold off some Antwerp. Now, Antwerp is a little bit more of a questionable one. Obviously, it's a lot more volatile. It's a lot more interested because the supply is just a little bit less than what we've seen for Paris and some other majors, but people are still interested in it. With that being said, I looked at everything I had for Antwerp. I 50% what I had. I went ahead, sold off half. I just really didn't think it was in a position right now where we're going to be seeing a massive amount of movement inside of this area, and I really wanted the capital. I've got a fair amount into Antwerp. A lot of them I went ahead and liquidated off so I could have that capital and honestly not feel obligated because I do have a fair amount of this. Now, the first group was all major items. The second one's going to be a lot more operation and a little bit more liquid items. These ones are going to be a lot more different. First up, I'm selling off some of my older collection skins. I've just got an absolute ton of these light gray skins, and honestly, I bought all of them at maybe 10 to 12 cents. Now we're looking at 50 to 70 cents, maybe even $1 on the high end. Honestly, with how much I've got of these, it's not a bad idea to start slowly liquidating these off, and that's something you're going to run into consistently whenever you're trying to sell any investment, but especially a lower liquidity one like this. These skins specifically have a lot of different options, and therefore your specific one probably doesn't have a ton of interest in that exact moment. Therefore, you got to liquidate off slower if you want to get the maximum value. I also am liquidating off some of my older operation items relating to stickers. Honestly, I'm just trying to start clearing out a little bit of this area. It's something that's a little bit more stagnant than I would want it to be, and I think I can utilize this capital a little bit better elsewhere. With that being said, a fair amount of these items are still great investments. They're just a little bit slower moving than I would personally want right now, and I would really like the capital on hand. Now, talking about the case market, I am not selling off any of my cases right now, and I think that's a very important area to look at. Right now, if you want to look at the case market, things are absolutely exploding all across the board, and that could be a very good reason as to why I could want to sell off some of these cases. If you want to look at the price points, they are up significantly, and that creates a very strong desire to get the money out of these cases. With that being said, I actually think selling cases right now is probably one of the worst things you could do. Cases right now are in such high demand all across the board, and nothing's going to be fundamentally changing about this moving forward in my honest opinion. I think it's extremely crucial that we look at these specific areas. The major items, the operation items, they're not really moving much. They're quite stagnant. The opportunity cost of these is just eating into these because nothing's happening. Looking at the case market, things are hot. People are interested, and all across the board, the cases are one of the most desirable aspects we're seeing inside of the game, generally speaking. Therefore, why would I want to go ahead and sell off cases right now? Specifically referring to the rare and discontinued cases, because those are the ones that don't have an increasing supply. Active duty is a little bit different, but even so, right now, all cases are still in very high demand. I don't think selling off the majority of cases in this current moment really has any positive impact unless you really need the money, you really want to cash out. Almost all of these cases, in my honest opinion, in the the rare case market are probably going to be increasing over time, especially if we see the current trajectories for a lot of these continue, especially when we're talking about these cheaper rare cases. I mean, look at the past year, but look at the past 6 months. All of these cases inside of this area right now are extremely hot. No reason to sell, in my honest opinion, and that's why I'm selling off some of the other areas so I don't even have to touch my case investment. Now, talking about an Austin major investment, buying and selling off, in my honest opinion, I'm really starting to creep out of the major investment game. I think in this current market, there's a lot better opportunities elsewhere, and if we want to look at what's happened with these major items consistently, we're seeing a lot of stagnation. Now, some of the ones from Shanghai or Copenhagen have actually increased in price a little bit, but I honestly want to look at the overall market conditions as of what has happened when those increased in price, and we can see cases have potentially doubled or tripled. Majority of items have creeped up significantly. It's overall market conditions that are pushing these prices up, not specifically a major capsule investment, in my honest opinion. I think there's a lot better opportunities than looking at these major investments, and that goes for Austin here as well. Honestly, I could very strongly see myself making a very small investment into Austin just so I have that leverage later down the line, but in the current market, there's no real reason for me to dedicate a lot of money into this area. Majors have become so oversupplied. It's something we've seen consistently, and honestly, I don't think that Austin's going to be that much different that I could really justify putting in that much more money. I'll put in a little bit, obviously, because I want to have that diversification, but honestly, diversification only goes so far. At the end of the day, we want to make significant money, and it's probably not going to be the likely scenario for a majority of an Austin major investment. Now, talking about where to sell your investments. Now, honestly, I would highly recommend you check out today's sponsor, Skinland, or go to a third-party website just to sell your items in general. Now, for me personally, I actually sold on the Steam community market here because most of these funds are going to be going back into videos, and I need that money to obviously create some of these videos. With that being said, usually selling on the Steam market is not the most optimal outcome as they take a pretty massive tax. Use a third-party site, please. Now, focusing on a little bit more unique investments like your agents, like your filler skins, like a lot of different other aspects inside of this area, I don't necessarily think right now is the most ideal time to sell. It's just the time that I personally chose. I think the most ideal time to sell usually comes down to what you're going to be doing with that money. Not always is it going to be a bad idea to have some capital on hand, especially when you don't really know what you want to get into, but it's also important that you don't have too much capital. This is obviously money that cannot be making more money because it's just sitting stagnant in your account. It's really important that you have a plan moving forward. I know my plan, which is why I'm selling off, and this is also a very small percentage of my inventory. We're talking about 2 or 3%, so it's not a massive amount, and I'm keeping almost all of my investments moving forward. Now, talking about what you should be doing right now, honestly, if you have some stagnant investments that you want to get out of, it's not a terrible opportunity. Generally speaking, the market overall is up. You're probably going to be getting a decent price for your items, and it really comes down to your personal equation. If you want the items right now, don't sell them off. Don't feel obligated, and on the same aspect, don't ever feel obligated to buy something. It's what you want to do. It's your investment. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.